WWL Louisiana News at 6 begins with breaking news.
Tonight, new photos of the Bourbon Street attacker. The FBI just released these images. They show Shamsuddin Jabbar just an hour before he drove a truck along the crowded Bourbon Street, and they're asking for anyone with any information to call the tip line.
Meanwhile, we have live team coverage for you tonight as that famous street reopens to visitors. The Superdome opens to Sugar Bowl fans, and officials are working to learn more about what led to the attack. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'm Katie Moore.
And I'm Sharice Gibson. It has been a very difficult start to the new year here in New Orleans. Earlier this afternoon, bars and restaurants along Bourbon Street reopened. Right now, the FBI is saying they do believe the suspect acted alone.
And we are learning more about those killed and injured in the attack. Our coverage begins tonight with Lily Cummings, who has more about what investigators are saying today. Lily?
Katie and Sharice, Bourbon Street is now open to pedestrians, and Canal Street, where I'm standing, is bustling. Just take a look behind me at the extra safety measures that have been put into place to keep folks safe. You can see a large armored vehicle. That is Homeland Security, and beyond them, you have JPSO directly blocking off Bourbon with a truck that they use during hurricanes, making a stronger barricade. Now, we were here this afternoon as Canal reopened. Cars were allowed to travel lake and riverbound starting around 2 p.m. 2 hours later, the Canal streetcar came back online. And then earlier today, the FBI gave big updates in their investigation. First, we learned that they now believe the suspect acted alone. We also found out that 2 explosive devices were found in the French Quarter in connection with this attack. Now, agents were able to disable them. After that press conference, NOPD Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick was on Canal. She shared they installed large metal blockades on Bourbon that prevent driving on the sidewalk. The chief was asked if she was upset that they weren't in place the night of the attack. Listen to her response.
It's not a matter of being upset. This is not a matter of pointing blame anywhere. A terrorist is hell-bent on destruction. This man was going to do his best. And if it hadn't been on Bourbon, he was going to go somewhere else.
Now, we also told you yesterday that investigators were looking for 4 suspects. They are no longer looking for those individuals. They told us that because there was footage going around that showed those folks looking at the coolers where they found some of those explosive devices. But the FBI said in that update today that these folks appear to just have been looking at those coolers, checking them out after they were placed. Reporting live from Canal Street, Lily Cummings, WWL Louisiana.
All right, an important distinction there. Thanks so much, Lily. Investigators are continuing to piece together evidence on the suspect who committed the attack, Shamsuddin Jabbar.
The FBI and local law enforcement says he's a U.S. citizen from Texas and an Army veteran who came to New Orleans looking to kill. Our chief investigative reporter, David Hammer, joining us now in studio. David, what do we know about Jabbar's history?
Yeah, we're learning so much more about Shamsuddin Jabbar. Yesterday, we were able to speak with Army veterans who served with Jabbar and knew him as a kind, intelligent, and talented IT specialist about 15 years ago. But now we're learning about his mounting personal and financial difficulties that may have just pushed him to the breaking point. Records from Texas and Georgia show Jabbar was divorced 3 times, in 2012, in 2016, and the last time in 2020. That last case was very contentious. Financial records from 2022 showed Jabbar with mounting debts, and his ex-wife alleged he committed fraud in payments to her and their child. The divorce wasn't settled until just a few months ago, with Jabbar telling his ex-wife's attorney he was facing foreclosure. And a year and a half ago, Jabbar moved into this compound in Houston in a tight-knit community of devout Muslims. This morning, a neighbor who did not want to be shown on camera talked to our sister station, KHOU.
When he comes in, he was Muslim. As a Muslim, I didn't know what happened to him before. I didn't know anything before, what his background was. I was in the military. I learned anything just everybody else learning as well. Now I know he was a nice, quiet neighbor. He won't bother. I know my kids are a handful. They sometimes scream, but he won't be bothered.
The FBI Deputy Assistant Director Christopher Reyes says that sometime before this summer, Jabbar started professing allegiance to the Islamic State terror group ISIS. Reyes said at a press conference this morning that Jabbar posted videos on social media this week saying he wanted to kill his family but that wouldn't create enough headlines about the, quote, war between the believers and disbelievers. So he rented the white pickup truck, drove from Houston to New Orleans on Wednesday, rented the Airbnb on Mandeville Street, set up the coolers with the pipe bombs in the French Quarter, and gunned the truck down Bourbon Street. And for now, the FBI believes he was acting alone. Katie? All
right, much more to come. Thanks so much, David. And right now, we do know the names of 9 out of the 14 people who tragically lost their lives while celebrating the new year. 18-year-old Nakaira Cheyenne Dido from Gulfport. She was visiting with her cousin and her friend. St. Thomas More alum and Princeton football star Martin Tiger Besh, and Nicole Perez, who was a mother from Metairie.
Reggie Hunter, who was told, or we're told rather, was visiting New Orleans from Baton Rouge on a whim. 21-year-old Archbishop Shaw alum Hubert Gothrow and University of Alabama student Kareem Bawadi, who we do not have a picture of just yet. Auburn University alum Drew Dolphin, 25-year-old account executive Billy DeMaio, and Superdome audiovisual technician Matthew Tenedorio.
Whitney Miller spoke with Tenedorio's mother earlier today. She's remembering him for his, quote, laid-back spirit and infectious laughter.
Whitney, we know that conversation was difficult.
Yeah, it was really difficult. Matthew Tenedorio was out celebrating the new year with friends on Bourbon Street when he got separated from his friends that he was with. He worked as an audiovisual tech at the Superdome, and his mother tells me everywhere that he went, he did not know a stranger. Matthew was the youngest of 3 and a graduate of Pearl River Central. His mother says thankfully he spent most of New Year's Eve with his family in Slidell.
It was just a very fun time, relaxing, loving, and then around 9:30, you know, oh, we're going to head off. We're going to head into New Orleans. So we just all hugged each other and gave each other, you know, a big love you, you know, Happy New Year. See you, talk to you tomorrow. Please text me when you get home, kind of stuff. My husband tried to tell him, please, just son, don't go and stay here. Don't, you know, no, Dad, so anyway, that was that. And then we didn't hear from him.
Yeah, she went on to tell me that trying to figure out where he was and what happened to him was a complete nightmare. Tonight at 10, she'll share more about her son and this whole experience.
Whitney, thank you so much. I know that was a heartbreaking conversation. And earlier today, local leaders walked down Bourbon Street and held a vigil to honor those victims. NOPD Chief Ann Kirkpatrick, Mayor Cantrell, local ministers, and Archbishop Gregory Amond held a second line and placed 14 yellow roses for each of those killed.
A short time after that vigil, the street was cleaned and cleared and reopened.
It was a very active crime scene yesterday, but now people are back in the bars and restaurants there. Amelia Strahan joining us with more. Amelia, how does it look tonight?
Katie and Charisse, for the first time since that attack, it's starting to sound a little more like normal on Bourbon Street. I'm sure you can hear the music playing. The crowds are returning. Really, since they opened that street at 2 o'clock, the crowds did not hesitate to come back. I'm going to step out of the way so you guys can get a quick look at Bourbon Street. Now, you know, this is a little closer to Canal. If you go further down, the crowds are a lot more dense, and we're expecting them to get even denser as the night goes on and the Sugar Bowl crowds make their way down to Bourbon Street. You can probably see the flashing lights. That is still just one little shot of the heavy police presence that's still down here on Bourbon Street. But I mean, as soon as they opened it up today, the people immediately started walking down, and I think it is because of that law enforcement presence. You know, it made people feel safer. But since that attack early New Year's Day, investigators have been the only people allowed on Bourbon Street. So it is encouraging to see it starting, you know, to look a little more like normal. And of course, there are mixed emotions about this reopening. You know, this comes just after the attack. So the people that are, you know, working at these businesses, they are still, you know, experiencing a little bit of fear from what we're hearing from them. We saw employees holding hands, praying. I know you showed video just a few moments ago of that vigil. So still, while sounding joyful and sounding a little more back to normal, still a very difficult day for many people down here. We actually spoke to Sheriff Susan Hudson just before they opened Bourbon Street today, and she described a difficult few days for her staff, but says she and other law enforcement agencies are ready to keep New Orleans safe.
people said, veterans who've been here for years are like, I've never seen anything like that. Community, it's about our visitors, it's about us. And so we feel good about the plan in place. You can see all the personnel here. We've got federal, state, local, law enforcement here, our first responders from EMS and fire, just tremendous efforts.
And of course, we're so grateful to our law enforcement out here doing a very important job during a very difficult time. We're going to keep you updated as we stay out here on Bourbon Street this evening. We'll see you guys back here at 6:30. Reporting live from Bourbon Street, Amelia Strahan, WWL, Louisiana.
Amelia, thank you. In addition to Bourbon Street reopening, the Sugar Bowl finally began.
Yeah, coming up a little later in the show, we're going to head out to the Superdome where enhanced security was in place for fans as they arrived for kickoff earlier this afternoon.
Plus, many of those injured in the attack are still at the hospital. We talked with doctors dealing with the emergency.
The investigation into this horrific attack on New Orleans will likely take a while because of an immense amount of evidence across 2 states. There are 3 big things investigators will be taking a look at. First, we're told by experts that the FBI is likely going to reverse engineer the bombs that were found in the French Quarter and in the suspect's car to figure out how they were built. Secondly, they'll be looking at Shamsuddin Jabbar's electronics, combing through the 3 cell phones and the 2 laptops that were seized, looking at his social media presence, any emails, texts, or contact he may have had with anyone online, all to get more insight into his motive and planning for the attack. The FBI is also currently combing through hours of surveillance video trying to track Jabbar's movements leading up to the attack. And third, the physical evidence will help tell this story too. That's what is found in his truck, in his home in Houston, and the home that was rented here in New Orleans, which we already know included bomb-making material inside. And again, we did get some new photos tonight from the FBI. This is our first look at Jabbar in the hours before the attack on Bourbon Street. Here he is walking along Dauphine around Governor Nichols Street, and also a photo of a cooler at Bourbon and Orleans that the FBI says had a bomb inside and was placed by Jabbar before the attack on Bourbon Street. The FBI released those photos so that anyone who might have information could help in this major investigation. Katie and Sharice.
All right, thanks so much, Devin. And in addition to those killed in this attack, many were also hurt and rushed to area hospitals.
Oh, they're well equipped to handle trauma patients, but the sudden influx this created is definitely challenging for any place. Medical reporter Meg Ferris has been speaking to doctors over the last couple of days. Meg, what can you tell us and what they've dealt with?
Katie and Sharice, so 37 people in all were taken to LCMC hospitals. That does not include Oxnard Baptist Hospital. But I can tell you that of the 26 and then 4 extras, so a total of 30, who were brought to UMC here, the Level 1 Trauma Center, for the highest level of care, there remains 16 people in the hospital still being treated behind me, and 8 are still in ICU. Now, one of the doctors here said that even though they're used to treating critically ill patients, that this is probably the single largest number of critically ill patients that they had seen in a short period of time with this mass casualty event. And of course, they also had the task of reuniting families and helping families find people who were missing, who ended up being patients here. Take a listen to what he had to say. Inevitably, with this horror, there were going to be people who could not be saved. How does the staff deal with that?
You know, it's really tough. We see death here, as healthcare providers, as part of our jobs, but it's still not easy. But you hear that we have, 26 critically ill patients here in the hospital, but there's multiple deaths on scene. That can take its toll, and that's difficult. It's difficult for the caretakers, it's difficult for the patients, and it's difficult for the families. And so we just try to keep doing our job here, care for the patients that we have, and then ultimately care for each other.
And a huge thank you to the community. 300 people turned out to give blood yesterday, and a lot of people were coming out today as well to the blood centers around the area. So you can still do that tomorrow as well. Reporting live from UMC, Meg Farris, WWL, Louisiana.
All right, Meg, thank you. And speaking of those blood centers, from blood donation drives to donations, there are a lot of ways you can help the victims. Many have GoFundMe set up. There's also a United Way fund and more.
And we have links on our website, WWL-TV.com, where you can find out all the information you need on how to join in each of those efforts.
All right, it's chilly outside with temperatures in the 50s right now. Dew points are a little bit higher this evening only because we now have an east wind. So temperatures overnight tonight aren't going to be as cold. We started out the day today in the 30s and 40s, more 40s, 50s, with maybe a few upper 30s to start the morning tomorrow. We're already down to 49 degrees at Bogalusa, elsewhere in the 50s. Now we do have some clouds and maybe a stray shower. It'll be moving our way through the overnight. So that's also a reason why our temperatures won't be as cold. Unlike the clear skies we had last night and this morning, we'll have a little bit more cloudiness overnight and likely some lingering clouds to start the day. Then a weak front moves on through. Beautiful for Friday and Saturday, still pretty nice. Let's fast forward to Sunday. This is when we get into a warm air sector in association with a much stronger cold front. Now the front will bring in some very cold air, but before it does, it will bring in a chance for some storms. Right now the timing for Sunday looks to be more late evening and night. So plan Saturday, fine. Sunday, much of the day, fine, but temperatures will be in the upper 70s to even some lower 80s. Then that cold air moves in. With that leading edge of the storms, there is a low end threat for some severe weather. It looks like the greater chance is going to be a little bit more to our north and west, but that could be reassessed as we get a better idea of the timing of that front. Kind of a big warm up on Sunday before that Arctic air moves in. Temperatures will stay in the 40s all day on Monday, 12th night, the start of carnival season, and could be cold enough for a hard freeze on the North Shore Tuesday and Wednesday. And I've been posting on social media, we are looking at the possibility, but the models are split right now on wintry weather next Thursday.
Well, yesterday's attack happened the same day the annual Sugar Bowl game was supposed to take place.
And as we now know, the officials did decide to postpone that kickoff to today. And as fans entered the dome this afternoon, there were plenty of security measures in place.
Jennifer Bellamy joining us now. Jennifer, you were there as people began to arrive. What can you tell us now?
Fans were just grateful and thankful to be here with this increased law enforcement presence that you can just certainly feel. Take a look at the scene. This is just outside of the Caesars Superdome, and you can see all of the flashing lights, several jurisdictions and municipalities out here with officers all along. You can see this line of vehicles, and this is the scene across multiple parts of the location surrounding the Superdome. Fans telling us that they were glad and grateful to have an opportunity to not only come out and support their team, but also to feel safe in doing so. We spoke with many fans who talked about the tragedy. They were very heartbroken about the situation there, but again, they said that they were very glad to have an opportunity and feel safe to come out and cheer on their teams.
We've been able to still just do everything together and just be cautious like we teach them to do anyway, you know, on a regular basis, you know. Unfortunately, there's evil and bad choices in the world, but, you know, we trust God and have faith in His plan.
And a lot of fans even taking time to speak with members of the law enforcement, thanking them for the work securing this location. Live from outside the Caesars Superdome, Jennifer Bellamy.
All right, Jennifer, thank you. And again, that game is being played in the Caesars Superdome. It should be wrapping up anytime soon.
Yeah, we know that after yesterday's attack, the kickoff delay, getting to this point, it was really a difficult process. And sports director Doug Mouton is joining us now in the studio with more on that. You talked to some fans today. You got more on the game for us?
I talked to a bunch of fans all day yesterday. Ricardo and I spent the day near both team hotels on Canal Street. The mood was unlike anything we've ever seen at a Sugar Bowl. Obviously somber and much quieter around the area area around Canal Street, although still with a ton of fans milling about. Now, the atmosphere in the game right now feels like a big-time college football game, which began this afternoon at 3 p.m. with a moment of silence in memory of the tragedy. In many ways, this game is a test of what team can put that aside and play, and they took different paths yesterday. Georgia opted to practice last night at the Superdome. Notre Dame did not. They brought families of players in, and they all stayed together in the hotel. Now, right now, the Fighting Irish are winning the game. They've taken advantage of 2 Georgia turnovers, and they got a kickoff return for a touchdown. Because of copyright rules, I can't show you highlights of the game until the game is over, but Notre Dame leads this game 23-10. It is now in the fourth quarter, under 5 minutes to go, and of course, the winners of the Sugar Bowl will play Penn State next in the college football playoff semifinal. Ricardo is at the game. He will have plenty of post-game reaction coming up tonight at 10. Katie?
All right, we look forward to that. Thanks so much, Doug. And after the break, we're continuing to follow the tragedy on Bourbon Street.
What we know right now about the attack on Bourbon Street next. Tonight, we continue to follow yesterday's attack on Bourbon Street. At least 14 people were killed when a man drove his vehicle past police units down the busy street early New Year's morning. The suspect was killed by police. The FBI says they now believe that he was working alone and are looking for any information. You can submit that through their tip line.
The street was cleared and reopened just after noon today. Around 30 other people were hurt, and there is a lot that you can do to help them and everyone else who's been impacted. You can donate blood and money. You can find information on how to do that on our website, WWL-TV.com. And that's going to do it for us tonight at 6. Thanks for watching.
We have a lot more coming up on the news at 6:30. Join us on WUPL.